looks like we have Eugene from Tribes on here.
Hey guys, yes, I'm here. Just
Hey
joined.
Eugene, how you doing?
Oh, good, good.
Good. Are we
Can
still
everybody hear?
waiting for
Yeah.
Steve? We'll be waiting for Steve Floyd as well, right?
I
Yep.
think so. Yeah, I'm having a technical issue right now, but bear with me here. Can you still hear me, Blue Jays?
I still can hear you. Yes.
All right. Well, if I go down, then you know what to do.
Yep. I hope you can make it back there, Kev.
Okay. Don't worry about me too much.
Okay.
If I go down, then you know what to do.
Yep. Hope you can make it back there, Kev. Hey,
Okay.
Steve. It looks like we have an echo on, so if anyone's broadcast has the show on, please turn it off or put it on mute. Make it back there, Kev. Hey,
Okay.
Steve. It looks like. All right. Awesome. Hey, welcome, guys. Welcome, Steve. Welcome, Eugene. Thanks for joining us today. Kev, it looks like you're back and you have some motion in your face there, so that's good. Um, welcome, guys. How are you guys doing today, Steve and Eugene?
Good. Thank you for inviting us. It's great to be on your show again.
Oh, and of course, Eugene, you were on the last BP panel. And Steve, I believe we had you on a long time ago when you were announcing the meetup out in San Francisco.
EOS Rise, yes.
Yes. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
Great, great. Busy, getting ready for the launch, but it's exciting time. Exciting time.
Yeah. Kev, you
Yeah.
want to give them the how the format goes?
Yeah. Hey guys, good to see you. We just mentioned you guys are from the United States, and of course, we'd like to learn more about where you're from and what your backgrounds are, who you guys are, and what makes you so passionate about EOS, and where you see everything going as well. So, go ahead. Where are you guys from?
I'll let Eugene start.
Okay, so I'm based in Utah, but before that I lived in Bay Area for about 10 years. And before that I lived in I grew up in Russia, Far East, close to Asia and China, so I kind of understand that culture as well. I spent about 20 years in IT and software industry, some banking IT experience as well. And when I learned about blockchain, it's like, once you make it into, once you're in for life. I just got hooked, and that's what I want to do. So I learned about EOS about a year ago. I started experimenting. I ran a single node first before, and then this community just, exploded. Right, end of last year and this year, it's been super exciting time for me, and I just enjoy working with everyone, and this community is great. It's like my new family, basically.
Agreed.
Well summarized. Yeah. And Steve, how about yourself?
So I come from kind of a creative background. I started out my career as a designer and kind of, worked my way into web development, because in the early 2000s, if you were trying to get by on print design, you didn't have a job. So I learned to code and kind of have a background in early Scheme and DOS and early computer systems, being in my early 40s. So I do have like somewhat of a traditional background. I can't code calculus and C++ like some of these guys, but I know enough to be dangerous. A lot of DevOps functions, and just running an agency, you kind of have to understand the full stack of how to deploy a product for a client and how to service them, how to manage perceptions, the sale to actually just the actual launch date is an entire process. And I'm well versed for the last 17, 18 years in that industry. So primarily user experience, I would say. Content strategy is what I'm known for, and a little bit of DevOps. And marketing, I think my generation was kind of pre-growth hacker. So if you could code and you knew technical SEO and like how to get stuff to rank, they didn't know what to call you, because you're either a spreadsheet person or you were a developer. But if you were somewhere in the middle, they didn't know where to put you. Now it's a whole role, but that's probably what if you were trying to place my value and understand what I do, I'm probably a first generation growth engineer. I prefer that word over hacker, because a hacker doesn't fully understand the system that they're wielding. I try to understand the systems that I use or that I'm a part of. And Eugene, you guys know I pulled out my candidacy back in February for EOS Dallas for many reasons, legal reasons. I had concerns about the system, and my partner just wasn't the right fit. He was approaching it from a minor perspective, and I had a few people try to recruit me, and so did Eugene, and we just kind of we're like, why don't we just do our own thing, you know, and we don't have to be under everyone's umbrella, and we can just have our little tribe. That's kind of where the name came from, and, you know, what brought us to this point. So
We should definitely point out, Steve, you mentioned content strategy and design. I mean, you made two of the best websites we've seen in EOS thus far. Of course, the Shintai website first, and then now the EOS Tribe website are just, they're beautiful. So
yeah, I still got it. I'm not useless yet. You know what I mean? I think in your 40s, you have this like innate fear that you kind of, as you move up the ladder and you just drive more strategy and not manage as many inputs, you lose your vocation a little bit, and you wonder, you know, what got me here? Like, you know, am I just like a professional speaker now? Is that what I am? And, you know, that's what's been the biggest gift of the EOS ecosystem, is a chance to get back to my roots and show that value, so people could really see the context of like who I was. And I'm not one of these guys that's like, oh, I was a big guy in this industry, so I should get all that over here. I started over like a scrub. I didn't expect any handouts from the community. You know, I gave my time and supported, just like the early WordPress or Linux communities did, you know, and I know how that works being a part of those early communities. So I didn't come in with any attitude or expectation. I mean, of course I want to have my stuff promoted if I can. Like, you can't blame me for that. But other than that, I'm happy to get back to those things. And I appreciate that very much, Kevin.
Steve, talking about that early WordPress and Linux, you've mentioned that before. Could you expand on that? I've heard you say that it's like EOS is going to be like a WordPress. Can you explain that?
So if you think back to like the early 2000s, like right before Zeldman and them came out with like the definitive first like web standard, you know what I mean, for CSS, and removing, you know, everything, you know, the content from just everything being an inline mess. You know what I mean? If you remember that era, it was horrible to work in these like table-based sites because it was really tedious to manage. And all these people in the early like WordPress and Drupal communities were like, this is the internet of ideas. This is going to change the world. And those very theme developers ended up the big fish by the end of the business cycle. By 2009 to 2012, they were the big dogs. Like, and they were the early movers that believed. People hated. People were like, no one's ever going to use an open source content management system. These aren't secure. No one's going to put their user information in. And sure enough, by like 2005, 2006, it was the standard. You know, I ditched Joomla and Mambo and the early proprietary systems we were using almost exclusively for Drupal and you know, and WordPress. And I just barely missed like that early mover by a few years, and my agency thrived, but I was never able to get any products to get enough traction, because you really have to be in that meritocracy, you know, to get the referrals and the influencers to really support your stuff. It's just the way that it works. And when I saw EOS, I was like, this feels just like that. You know, everyone's hating on it. No one understands the throughput or how the system works. Not that I'm an expert by any means, but compared to the average person coming on that's just like Win Moon, you know, I try to explain the basics and explain to them, you don't understand. Like, this or a flavor of it is going to be very much what we all build on in this new like Web 3.0 everyone talks about. And, you know, it's going to be a tokenized economy. People are going to use apps that they enjoy using and interact with people, and they're going to get tokens for doing that. And they're going to be able to trade out those tokens on the open market. So a kid who's like, I was just talking about this on Fuzzy's show, a kid who's like 11 years old, we don't need universal income. You know, we could literally have kids just using the dApps they like, and they own their inputs, and their value gets paid out. By the time they're 20, 19, they've got enough to pay for college. Mm-hmm. So this tokenized economy has a lot of, I mean, like Dan says, it could fix a lot of inefficiencies, even beyond EOS, just interchain communication, cross-chain communication, all these innovations that are coming out around EOS. You notice like 70% of the conversation that people are talking about doing, Dan and them are actually doing it. You know, it's going to be released, and we're going to test this thing out, while other people are 2 or 3 years out in theory. So that's like, when I see that, it sounds similar to that same conversation people were having around WordPress and Drupal, where people were like, that's not going to happen. All these innovations were happening in this event-driven system, you know, that WordPress became. It didn't have the plugins or the community, but they saw that. Like, they saw what an event-driven architecture like that could do and where PHP was headed when everyone else didn't think it was possible. They knew, and that's what I see is very similar to what's going on right now in EOS. And anybody who's on the fence, in just 2 or 3 years, you're going to be like, dang it, I should have got involved. Like, I tell everybody, like, I evangelize it 24/7. My family thinks I'm crazy.
We may have found someone who's more passionate than Blue Jays and I about EOS. And let's make sure we dive in a little bit to EOS Tribe as well. Hear more about what you guys are accomplishing and what the background is for EOS Tribe.
I'll let Eugene lead with kind of the vision and missions.
Yeah, so as I started initially on the kind of EOS SLC meetup umbrella and worked with technical guys even before we announced BP candidacy. We were involved in kind of test nets and technical testing and just doing some development as well, right? And for EOS and kind of projects around related to API and wallet application for EOS. One of the problems that I was kind of passionate about is key management. It's one of the biggest problems in cryptocurrency world in general, to keep it secure and to manage it in a secure and easy way at the same time. That's what will become a catalyst for people adopting wallets and use wallets more than just exchanges, And so I met Steve, and and that's when I saw he had what I was lacking, basically. I just wanted to have my head into technical stuff. That's what I'm passionate about. I work on technical code, but may not be. I realized at some points that block producer role is very unique role, and it kind of mixes two distinct and different qualities: is being technically savvy enough to actually maintain a node and keep up the network and keep it secure at the same time, right? So it's performance, security, lots of technical skills, some DevOps skills. It takes some expert level, and at the same time you have to be a good marketing, good politicians. I would argue as well, right? So there's lots of aspects. You need to have this personality, which you rarely find in one person. You just rarely find, and I think Steve and I have this good tandem in terms of our qualities, that we kind of fulfill each other. Where like I lack, Steve compensate, and vice versa, right? So that's why I think we work well together, and Steve has a good technical understanding as well. And I have some business education, so I can understand business when we talk about business. So I think we're a good tribe,
I would add to that right where I leave off in terms of like back-end programming, like he knows. So I am somewhat, technical. Eugene will say, like, I can build out like pretty impressive hardware specifications. I can look at a schematic of the system and get down to the nuts and bolts. But it comes to coding, like I said, custom calculus on the fly off the top of my head. I'm not Bart, and I'm not like, and I don't think many people are like Dan and Bart. Like, but yeah, like that level, or even Eugene's level, I'm not going to be one of these guys out here acting like I can. And those are areas I'm not, I'm a designer, I'm a design strategist. That's what I do. I don't claim to be a back-end architecture systems guy. So, I will leave that to Eugene.
Yeah.
I'll handle it. Fair enough. I mean, that's why you guys work so well together. So what do you guys have in store? Like, what is EOS Tribe about, and what do you guys have coming up?
So let me...
Go ahead.
I'll start first, and then I'll hand it to Steve. Basically, what we are doing right now is I'm kind of trying to spearhead that effort to build a kind of a secure cluster of BP nodes, which are basically top block producing candidates, which establish a secure network of VPN nodes, and we have that mesh network established pre-launch, and configured securely, so that no DDoS attacks and hacking will be possible against those nodes. And then we can just plug in on June 2nd when we go live, like this whole mesh network will just, plug in into the process and will light up, right? And then election process will determine who will be actually producing node, blocks, and who will be just a full node, right? But the network will still remain intact and secure. So we kind of have this hybrid approach of a secure cluster and a boot process around it, basically. So that's one project that we're working on, to get it in. That's kind of priority one. We are laying down our own infrastructure, and we are configuring it like this week and next, basically, to have it all in place, and test it well before we go live. Then shortly after, there is a project I'm working on related to EOS wallet application, and some of you have seen it. I kind of keep it under radar because it's not ready, but there's a web wallet application that I plan to get back to and launch shortly after EOS, mainnet is launched, and then there's a mobile wallet application development ongoing effort as well, where I actually have a remote team of developers in Eastern Europe helping me to build it, and some good designers as well. So that's what I have on my side, and Steve has his projects as well, so I'll let him cover.
I mean, one of the ones that that is kind of an ongoing thing is just design and data visualizations to help people understand how EOS works and kind of the history. I'm working with another designer and 2 other team members that we will be announcing here in the next week or 2 that we are bringing onto the tribe that handle different roles like social media and community, and another role for design, because it's impossible to design all this stuff. I've basically designing for 5 projects right now, and 2 of them are in EOS Essentials and several other dApps that I'm consulting with, and it's tough to design everything that needs to go out. And I also want to raise the quality of the design, to kind of meet the standard that's already been put out there, and to do that consistently, it's tough. So that's something that we're excited about, and I've just spent the last week trying to make that transition and get those people onboarded so they know our production schedule and kind of what's needed. Beyond that, so I'm trying to get a lot of preparation for our 2 announcements. One, our code of conduct, it's going to go out tonight, and then a roadmap of our existing projects. And some of the 8 projects that we have, the main one that I am a personal part of and is a kind of a personal legacy project is EOS tutorials. And I think, EOS docs came out and people were like, well, isn't this like that? And it's I don't really think so, because I think EOS docs is going to be geared more towards the definitive documentation for developers, whereas EOS tutorials is meant for more entry-level to intermediate people who need it spelled out. They need a video, just like, just like webtoots.com. That's why we designed it that way, was to make it accessible for those entry-level people. And that's one of the biggest complaints that I've heard in the ecosystem is all this stuff is great, but you guys are asking me to jump into coding C++, and Dan and them like it because they're well, hey, the cost of entry, that's the price of the ticket. But it's also we need to do what we can to lower that barrier of entry for people out there who may just be entry-level, mid-level Solidity developers, or people who have just written a few contracts and are just getting the hang of it. If we make it really easy for them to get in and start using Cleos and start, adding, playing with EOS.js, and there's super simple, ABC tutorials. That's what EOS tutorials is about. Having married to video, oversized text, mobile first, all that stuff. Not that EOS portals isn't, but it's purely going to be that's where the real devs go. They want to know, hey, how do I do this thing? And they're going to go to that. They don't want all that extra fluff. So they both serve, I think, a good part in the community and can solve different problems. So other than that, just new design projects that I've got under wraps of just really cool infographics and data visualizations and cool interactive stuff that we're working on, that pre and post mainnet launch, that a lot of people I think are really going to like. You know what I mean? This is some of the best work I personally, from from an infographic, like data visualization standpoint, I'm an agency person, so we create a lot of those to get links, for PR and to highlight people in their industry. This is the first one that I've done that I've been like a kid in a candy store that I'm just like, oh, this is so cool. Like usually it's something boring. It's like, the history of the medical industry or something. This is like the history of EOS. And I'm like, probably a little too into it.
Well, that's all the demand you have for designing probably comes from those websites to begin with, but I know there's a lot going on in the background you're probably working on as well. We should also mention your introduction post for EOS Tribe. You guys mentioned one of the most interesting things I think I've seen, the Cube satellite program for part of the future. I would love to hear more about that.
Let me just say up front before Eugene says anything.
Yeah.
We know to the community, like this is a 2 or 3 year legacy project, and it may never even get off the launch pad. They still have to approve it at the international level. The point is, the blockchain, the Blockstream people and the Bitcoin people have taken those steps, and they're at the 20-yard line, and we could do that too. Mm-hmm. We're just trying to introduce that into the lexicon of the ecosystem, so people can, who are part of EOS, think big like that. They're like, wow, we really could get academic support and block producers and and entrepreneurs to add in on this, put the money up, pay off the people that at least get it to review, and try to get us a full node in space. Why not?
And I would like to add on a technical side, I think it's a great idea, and honestly it's not an original idea, to be honest. Bitcoin is doing it as well. And so the main functions, just to kind of so people understand, the main function of a satellite is double. First is a full node backup in case if who knows, catastrophic event, right?
The world blows up, yeah.
Goes dark, right? So we have a copy in a satellite left, and a second is it will stream a blockchain information as a radio signal back to Earth. So even in remote places where you may not have internet connection, we actually have access to EOS blockchain. Would not that be cool, right? And if we can get community passionate about it and chip in, right, it will take some expense. That could be probably the coolest projects all of us have done in our lifetime, right? Something we can be proud of and talk to our grandkids about, like, hey, we launched satellite, and then that's not that expensive, to be honest. If you do some research, if you look into it, like, commercial, small satellites, we are not talking about like what NASA is launching, but a small satellite, very specialized function, we are talking 40, 50K hardwares and a launch expense, and we can shop around too, right? So there are private companies, there are other countries that we can go to that can serve as a launch platform. So it is feasible project. It's not only something crazy, it's very feasible.
And it may take time, but it's still possible. And I just want to stress that. People are like, I really think you're going to. Well, no, we know it's going to take a process. We need to come out with a white paper. We need to get some of the academic community involved. We need to get BP support. But those are things that Eugene is actively working on. This is kind of Eugene's legacy project. I mean, his dream would be, in 3 or 4 years when the big establishments start coming in for BPs, and that would be the perfect cherry on top to just be like, okay, well, we put a node in space. So.
Mm-hmm. And so I have the sentiment, right? My initial degree was in theoretical physics. And I wanted to, when I was growing up back in school, I actually wanted to be a physicist, right? I wanted to be a physicist. And then I moved to computer science because that's what pays. And doing something like satellite is not only cool, it's actually also rubbing kind of like on a scientist side.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And we have to do, well, in terms of where people can community members can keep up with you guys, where should they follow? Where should they follow EOS Tribe? Is it Twitter or Steam or website?
EOStribe.io has pretty much all of our block producer candidacy information. That's EOStribe.io is probably the central place to get all of our most current information. We'll have some updates rolling out there this week, and it's got all of our project info, our BP announcement. It translates automatically for different people in different countries. So that's probably the best place to find our information.
Wow. Cool. Well, it's great meeting you guys. And you guys have a neat thing going. I like how you call yourselves the Tribe.
Yep.
It sounds like it's working well. So, yeah, thank you guys for coming on.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. It was a pleasure. Good night.
Have a good night.